As we know, the LGBTQ plus community is now more accepted than it ever has been, and we know that people in general are more accepting of this idea of quote-unquote gays. But we also know it hasn't always been like this, and we have made large strides into the positive direction to becoming a more of an open community. We definitely would not be where we are today if it weren't for the gay rights movement and the impact it had. But honestly, what started the gay rights movement? In the 1960s, members of the LGBTQ plus community were not welcomed or wanted. In fact, it was illegal in New York City to be a person wearing less than 3 gender-appropriate articles of clothing. If found violating this law, people could be arrested. Members of the LGBTQ plus community found their refuge by gathering at local gay bars and clubs. This was their safe place, a home away from the world that did not accept them. But during the 1960s, the state liquor authority would refuse to grant licenses to bars or clubs that served alcohol to people of the LGBTQ plus community, forcing them to operate as illegal saloons. The SLA did this because they felt that the mere gathering of homosexuals was quote-unquote disorderly. Since the SLA would refuse to grant licenses to these clubs and bars, mafia affiliates stepped in and started running these places, paying off the police to look the other way. The Stonewall Inn was once such. Originally being a restaurant and nightclub for heterosexuals, 3 members of the Genovese crime family stepped up in 1966 and bought the Stonewall Inn and turned it into a gay nightclub. Many of the people who came here were young queer kids from the ages of 16 to 20 that had been kicked out of their homes only wearing the clothes on their backs. They would panhandle the $3 it took to enter the Stonewall Inn, and here inside the walls they found their community. But during this time, the New York City Police Department started cracking down on illegal clubs and bars. While the police department maintained that they were simply shutting down illegal clubs, it was the clubs that gays frequented that were hit. On June 28, 1969, New York City police raided the Stonewall Inn. Since the other bars had already been shut down, raiding the Stonewall Inn threatened the last remaining safe place for the LGBTQ plus community to go to. This raid sparked a riot among bar patrons and neighbors. The riots lasted a total of 6 days, involving violent clashes with law enforcement and protests outside the bar on Christopher Street and neighboring streets as well. Members of the community protested. The riot started out as protesters throwing bottles, pennies, cobblestones, and any other objects they could at the police, but within minutes, a full-blown riot occurred involving hundreds of people. Greenwich Village residents organized groups to create safe places for LGBTQ plus people to be open about their sexual orientation without fear of being arrested. And they had the support of the broader community. Within months of the Stonewall Riots, activist groups were created to help advance the rights of LGBTQ plus people in New York. And on June 28, 1970, the first gay pride marches took place in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago, commemorating the Stonewall Riots and the progress that has been made.